Welcome to the Master Dealmaker's Secrets podcast. And now, here's sales growth strategist, John Blake.
Welcome to Master Dealmaker's Secrets. I'm John Blake. This is episode 85. And today we're going to talk about taking responsibility versus blaming or not taking responsibility. Very, very important idea, concept in business. Really excited to be sharing this with you. Have some personal experience, which I'll be sharing as well. But before I do that, I wanted to encourage you to head over to johnblakeaudio.com. Over there is a way that I have now taught for a number of years. A heap of people have downloaded this resource. It is designed to help you convert more of the leads that you have in your pipeline into paying clients. These are the leads that you are often not sure about. Maybe you spoke to them, you gave up on them, you forgot about them, they never rang you back. There's a stack of them, I know, because every single business I talk to has these people in their pipeline. And this is a specific way, it's a proven way, it's been refined and developed and refined, and it works really well. So johnblakeaudio.com. What you'll get is an audio training as well as a PDF that actually has exactly what to say when you call these people, exactly what to say in your emails, exactly how often to ring them, exactly how often to email them to convert more of those people that you've spoken to into paying clients. Can't recommend it enough because I know it works. And once you get this working in your business, it will give you consistent results. And if you continue to do it, it will increase your conversion rate, because if people don't convert on the front end, they'll convert off the back end, which has the default effect of improving your conversion rates, which gives you a better return on your advertising, give you more profit. Help your salespeople to feel more empowered, help you to feel more empowered. So head over to johnblakeaudio.com and grab that now. As I said, you'll get the PDF companion guide that's got all of the word-for-word email templates, voicemail templates, exactly what to do and how often over a 8-week period to convert as many of those people that are in your pipeline into paying clients. Okay, cool. So we're going to talk about taking responsibility. Now, sales is one of those, in fact, being in business is one of those, it's one of those things where you really, like every now and then you've just got to hold a mirror up and you've got to go, okay, where am I at? What are my results? And, you kind of need to face the reality of where you're at. And what I find is that, over the years, 17 years as a sales coach, consultant, strategist, and then, another 20 years in business prior to that. So not 20. It makes me sound like I'm 100. I've been in business for 30 years, 17 as a coach, so do the maths. So what I've noticed is that when things go wrong, there are one of two paths that you can take. You can blame circumstances or blame external things to yourself for your results. And there's a certain path that takes you down, which we'll talk about in a minute. Or you can take responsibility. And that takes you down a very different path. So if we compare the two, so not taking responsibility, that is so when you blame something external, so you could blame a person, you could blame the competition, you could blame all sorts of things. As I said, I'm going to give you an example of this. You could blame the economy, you could blame what's happening in the world. There's all sorts, a massive list of things that you could blame. You could blame the fact that you've got a family and that you need to spend time with them and that you haven't got time to do things. And, there's like I said, that list is huge. But when you don't take responsibility, when you blame external things to yourself, it is disempowering. Okay, so it's disempowering for a number of reasons, not the least of which is it actually takes energy away from you. It takes energy away from you. It makes you a lot less likely to attract success because your vibration is crippled. That sounds very woo-woo, but you tend to, like attracts like. So if you're vibrating at a high level, you will tend to attract things, people, opportunities that are in tune with that particular vibration. When you do not take responsibility, when you blame things, you are disempowered. So from an energetic perspective and from an opportunity perspective, you are giving away your power when you do that. Very simply speaking. You actually take away your control. So you actually have no control, because if you think about it, if you're blaming your circumstances, if you're blaming where you are on other things, then the only way that you can change those circumstances is if those external things change. So in most cases, you've just assigned the responsibility for your own circumstances to other things. You've attached that responsibility to other things, and so now those other things are going to need to change for your circumstances to change, if that makes sense. Which means you can't do something about it. The psychology behind it is that, well, if my circumstances are attributed to all these things that are external to me, then I don't have the power to change them. I don't have the power to change them. So you might physically have the power to change them, but psychologically in your head, you're assigning all this responsibility and blame externally, which means that you are unlikely to do anything to change your current situation because based on your own logic, it's not your fault. You're blaming other people. So as long as you continue to blame external things, then you will stay where you are. You will stay where you are. And there's a payoff. People often don't talk about the payoff. So what's the payoff for blaming external circumstances? What's the payoff for not taking responsibility? Well, in most cases, the number one payoff is righteousness, right? So you could be right. And as I said, I'm going to give you an example. It's a personal example. It's going to be a little bit confronting, me sharing this with you, but it's a true story, and I want to use it as an example because I think it's a great example of what we're talking about here. But before we do that, on the other hand, if you do take responsibility, right? So conversely, it is empowering, because if you go, okay, well, I can't blame anything. I can't blame anyone else. These are my circumstances. I've brought them on myself in one way, shape, or form. As soon as you do that, it is empowering. It is empowering. So I got myself here. I can get myself out, right? You now have control. As soon as you say, well, circumstances certainly have led to the choices that I've made, but I made those choices. I played the cards that I was dealt in this particular way, and so here I am. And it might not be immediate things, but it could be other choices that you've made that led you to a situation where you were forced to make certain decisions. But as soon as you go, okay, well, it's my call. I made the decisions that led me here. Now you have control over what's going on. You got yourself here. You can get yourself out. And so when you do take responsibility, you are no longer stuck. You are no longer stuck. And there's a part of your brain that now actually opens up. And that part of your brain is like, okay, well, now there's this creativity that kicks in that says, well, what could I do differently? What could I do differently? So I'm going to relate a story to you that relates to my time when I had a wholesale fashion agency. I was the sales agent in Western Australia for a brand called Mambo, and I did that for 10 years. And for the first 6 or 7 years, it was awesome. I picked the brand up. I was able to double and triple sales, and keep those numbers, hold those numbers consistently for a number of years. And then some things changed. So What happened was the market changed. So, we're talking about fashion. Fashion changes, like fashion by definition is something that's fluid, that changes, So things are, in inverted commas, in fashion one day, and they can be, in inverted commas, out of fashion the next day. That's just the way of things. So while things were going well, I was certainly able to maximize all those opportunities and create massive shifts in the results. And we were on a real learning curve, but a real growth curve as well. And so for a number of years, enjoyed fantastic sales and fantastic results. And then something changed. So what changed is the industry went, without going into it into bigger depth, the industry sort of went into more of a, traditional menswear, urban kind of direction, and surfwear wasn't as popular. So there was that. The two most popular items in the Mambo range, which were their graphic printed tees and their rayon printed shirts, we were still getting good sales in them, but the sales were starting to go. They were starting to plateau, and then they started to actually go in the opposite direction. And so what the company, and then the other thing that happened is that the company got sold. So the company got sold from the original people who started it to another company, and this big company bought, paid a lot of money for it. And so they were looking to get a good return on what they'd invested. They'd invested tens of millions of dollars in buying it, and they needed to get a good result. And so what they did is that they went, well, we need to take advantage of this fashion thing in the action sports and surf market that seems to be getting most of the growth. So we're going to change the range. We're going to take out the two best-selling items out of the range, which were the printed, the graphic printed T-shirts and the printed rayon shirts, and we're going to take them out of the range, right? Now, where I was, that was responsible for 50% of my sales. 50%. And by that stage, over the 7 years, I'd grown from a single person operation in a I think it was like a 93 square meter office and showroom to a 300 square meter office and showroom. I had a girl that I employed that was helping me sell the female part of the Mambo range, and I had this commercial lease, that was like I think it was like a 5-year commercial lease, or at least a 3-year commercial lease, and I don't think I'd even completed the first year, and I had 2 years to go. And because they took these two ranges, these two products out of the range that were worth 50% of my sales, within 6 months my sales halved, and it was really nasty. I ended up having to try and get out of this commercial lease. I had to get rid of the girl that was working for me. I had to totally downsize and right-size the business, and it was nasty. Now, from my perspective, how did I deal with that? I started blaming the company, right? Well, they should sort of listen, and I actually had been pretty proactive. I jumped on a plane, I went over there, I spoke to them, I said to them, gave them my thoughts on where I thought that they should take the brand and what they should do and how they could capitalize on opportunities, and I think I had some good suggestions, but they weren't particularly attentive or receptive to my ideas, and so I'd paid for myself to fly over there and meet with them and put up, pay for my own accommodation, all the rest of it. So I came back and I was really disappointed that they hadn't taken my suggestions seriously. And I started to blame them. And I would tell anyone that would listen. I would say, people say, how business? Well, business is crap, and I would just tell this story. I just like the world's smallest violin. I just tell anyone who'd listen, including clients. So clients had come in to see the range, and they could tell that I was angry and that I was upset and that I was blaming this company. And it started to, and so instead of coming in and buying what they would normally buy with me, they started buying less because my energy around my own brand that I was representing in the state was actually really bad. So this was this kind of downward spiral. I ended up having to get out of this commercial lease, and then I moved home, and I rented a place that had a space that I could, show the range in, and this went on for about, probably 12, 18 months. Anyone who would listen, I would just tell them this story about how, the company that I was working for, they'd blown it and they had this big opportunity and all the rest of it. And so it was actually my late wife who actually said to me one day, she said to me, "You know what?" I said, "What?" She said, "You have become a whinger." I went, "What?" She goes, "I have heard you tell anyone who will listen this long-winded explanation of how crap Mambo is and how they're making all these mistakes." And she said, "You become a whinger." And in that moment, it was like she slapped me in the face. And I was just like, whoa, you are so right. You are so right. And so in that moment, it was like that vault that I talked about earlier on opened up. It was like all these possibilities, all these opportunities that I had that I didn't take responsibility for not pursuing. So what do I mean by that? Well, I was a independent wholesale fashion agent. So Mambo was one of the ranges that I represented, but I also had the opportunity to be able to represent any other brand in WA. But I didn't. I didn't keep my eye on what was popular. I wasn't proactive in going and seeing people and trying to bring on other brands into my agency. And so I started to see that because I had been in this blaming pattern, I had missed all of these opportunities that I had to actually get myself out of my own situation that I was 100% responsible for. And so it was such a massive lesson, and I've never forgotten it. And, whenever I sort of get myself into a situation where I'm like, things, aren't going as well as, as what I'd like, because, that was 17 years ago. So, I've certainly been through a few different iterations of my current business. When I first started, I had a business partner, and, having gone through all these cycles, you get better at it. And it's like, okay, well, what can I do? What can I do? What are my options? And in a future podcast, probably the next one, I can take you through a process that you can start to identify what some of these opportunities are, to take responsibility for where you're at. So I hope that helps. Perhaps it was the thing that you needed to hear today. I hope that's the case. And thank you for listening, and I will talk to you on the next podcast. Cheers.
You've been listening to Master Dealmaker's Secrets with John Blake. Subscribe to get more in-depth strategies to maximize your sales process with new episodes every week. And double your inquiry to sale conversion with the lead flow you already have. Go to johnblakeaudio.com for his exclusive free no-fluff audio training and companion PDF guide.